they've gone to another anesthetic. This one is called midazolam. And in 3 executions, there might have been some problems with it. Instead of going quickly and painlessly, witnesses who watched the execution said that inmates were gasping or snorting or making choking sounds. And at least in one execution, that the inmate was actually speaking.
There's a conversation between Matt Hancock and Dr. Luke Evans, MP, where Dr. Evans is patting Matt Hancock on the back for ordering up 2 years' worth of midazolam. He says to ensure a good death, right? A good death in Greek is euthanasia.
And I know I've spoken to nurses that were taken into side rooms and told to give patients 60 milligrams of midazolam, knowing it would be a fatal dose, but it was to give them a good death, Matt Hancock said. And he said that in Parliament. And he should hang his head in shame. He should languish in a prison cell forever, that man, because he's authorised and forced medical staff to euthanise people. And now, consent is the key element now. I'm all for giving someone a merciful death, but the key element that's missing here is any form of consent.
So from March, they order an extra, tons and tons of extras of an end-of-life drug, right, a murder drug. And here we go. Now they bring it over in the following month, and they're saying, oh, we're going to need this to help fight COVID-19.
Doesn't make any sense.
Isn't that interesting? And Matt Hancock, the piece of trash that he is, he told the House of Commons Health and Social Care Select Committee on the 17th of April that intensive therapy unit medicines, including midazolam, are part of a delicate supply chain as they are made in relatively small number of factories around the world. And he's justifying why they needed to gain access to so much of this particular drug.
Exactly. So, and did they also go into, includes, the manufacturer said French stock only includes midazolam at the strength of 1 milligram and 5 milliliters, while the initial supply in March 2020 contained a variety of 4 different strengths. That's interesting. Yeah. Why do you need 4 different strengths? Why are we using a sedative on a so-called respiratory illness? Okay, yeah. It doesn't make sense. We know what we know about the virus. We know it doesn't exist. Okay, and this just concludes it right here. Yeah. Not only it would never be used, but now we can create symptoms with a drug that look like a respiratory illness.
Yeah,
they have created those symptoms with this drug.
Yep. So Joel and I are going to continue to do some more work on this and dig more. Expect another update on this midazolam situation, because this is enormous, guys. It really, really is.
On equipment, do you have enough syringe drivers in the NHS to deliver medications to keep people comfortable when they are passing away? This was addressing Matt Hancock.
Do you have enough syringe drivers in the NHS to deliver medications to keep people comfortable when they're passing away?
Matt Hancock's reply, and you can hear this because the transcript is out there. Yes, we have. A challenge was raised on that about 8 days ago. It was not as big a challenge as was made public, and we have resolved it. Yes, right now we have enough.
Yes, we do. There was a challenge raised about this about 8 days ago, and we resolved that. Actually, it wasn't as big a challenge as was made public, and we've resolved that. So yes, right now we do.
The inappropriate use of respiratory depressing medications such as midazolam during the same period. This was the scam. You give them midazolam, that sedates them, but it also causes respiratory consequences. And you call that COVID-19. This is how the UK government and the Department of Health, led by the psychopath, Matt Hancock, mass murdered all these thousands of old people and those with disability. Nazis.
The stockpiles that they bought of this drug, midazolam, for last year were insane. Insane amounts.
Yeah, and this is basically, I think, Pat, what caused the death in our elderly people across the world. This is what they were using. It's a very simple means. You give them this drug, their breathing slows down. You throw them on a respirator,
Well,
and here we go.
That's exactly it.
We've got death by COVID-19.
What was happening here was this was the state-sponsored genocide of hundreds of thousands of people, specifically here in the United Kingdom.
Yes. How you doing?
I'm not doing it.
Matt, come on. Do you regret sending people into care homes at the early part of the pandemic? What would you say to the parents of the relatives of people who died in care homes? What would you say to them, Matt? A lot of people. 1 in 14 care home residents died of COVID in the first 3 months of the pandemic. What would you say to the relatives of those people? You're not going to talk about that? Okay, fine, great.
Name Midazolam. So it's MIDAZOLAM, Midazolam. And if you put that into Google, it will tell you all about it on different sites, and it'll also tell you about all the things to avoid, such as don't use it with opiates, which they're actually doing in a care home environment because they're euthanizing people in the care home environment.
Matt Hancock buys a 2-year supply of a drug that causes respiratory illness, and then they try to push a pandemic that attacks the respiratory system.
Right.
I mean,
well, they didn't try. They succeeded, unfortunately, on this in every way of it. And it's insane.
It turns out that midazolam, I think a sedative, I think has played an important role in the spring 2020 excess deaths. And I'm not sure whether to put too fine a point on it, but certainly it's alleged that medical procedures were distorted substantially, and this essentially this drug was used to kill people, very large numbers of people in the UK. And the evidence for that is that for the whole of the year 2018-19, normal quantities of this material were ordered but not dispensed. So there's a whole year's worth of stock was acquired, and then early in 2020, the generic suppliers of this midazolam ordered 2 years' supply, which was delivered, which meant as we went into the beginning of the lockdown, there were 3 years' supply of this sort of end-of-life drug washing around, and it's all been dispensed.
And they're using in a lot of hospitals a drug used to euthanize people. It's called midazolam, to actually put them in a comatose state. That was used for lethal injections for years. In the UK, it's being used to kill people in elderly care centers for the last year and a half, and then code them as COVID-19 when we know that drug kills you. But this is what they're using. We've seen this on medical reports, by the way.
Putting these people onto syringe drivers where they are dosed up with midazolam and morphine and pretty much euthanized and killed, so that they are no longer a burden to our precious NHS.
And they started putting do not resuscitate orders on them, so if they needed resuscitation, it didn't happen, in the same period that this mass prescribing of midazolam was going on. And it created tens of thousands of deaths, which were called COVID-19. And that was the first wave, the first invention of deaths and consequences blamed on a virus that does not exist.
I said repeatedly to the Prime Minister that he should be fired. So did the Cabinet Secretary, so did many other senior people. There are numerous examples. I mean, in the summer, he said that everyone who needed treatment, who got the treatment that they required. He knew that that was a lie, because he'd been briefed by the Chief Scientific Advisor and the Chief Medical Officer himself about the first peak. And we were told explicitly people did not get the treatment that they deserved. Many people were left to die in horrific circumstances.
There's some evidence out there, I know it, there has to be, that shows that the amounts used throughout the March, April, and May months in the United Kingdom of this drug went up. There has to be. And David had a couple of graphs that he had printed out in his video as well. But I haven't seen the physical concrete evidence myself yet. But there's got to be these graphs out there. And I was looking a bit last night, this morning. I couldn't find it.